Have a seat. Thank you so much.
Nick, man, we've been having so much fun the last couple of days. I mean, I can't imagine what life is like with you on the road. I mean, your sense of humor is just awesome. It's got to be fun hanging around you.
We have fun. We have a lot of fun. You know, like our schedule's so busy when you're going around Africa and Indonesia, and you just need a couple laughs to break it up a little bit. And I tell you, man, I have lots of fun in my little BMW 7 Series behind me, and we're going to send it to Pimp My Ride, and we're going to get some spinning rims on it and get like a subwoofer and just get it bouncing, you know what I mean? Like, have a whole party in my wheelchair. And it's quite funny when I drive around shopping malls and outside in public places, a lot of people, you know, sort of freak out, and, you know, these little kids, I love running after them. And there was this one boy who saw me one day and he goes, "What happened?" And I went up to him and I go, "Cigarettes." And love freaking kids out, man. We were in this airplane one day and my friends put me in the overhead compartment. A lot more leg room up there, so. No, they shut the door and we waited for somebody to come and put their bag up. This guy came, opened the door, go, "Boo!" You know. I said, "The restrooms are over there." The funniest story, though, is I was in a car one day, and when you see me from the outside of the car, you have no idea that I have no arms and no legs. You just see my head. And we're at the traffic lights one day, and this car comes up next to us, and this girl's looking at me. And I'm like, "Cool, let's have some fun here." So I look at her, and I grab the seatbelt in my mouth, and I loosen it. And then in the car seat, I just did this. She was like, I've never seen anybody so desperate for a green light in my life. It was, you know, that's a couple funny stories for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun.
We've been having a blast the last couple of days, but I know, Nick, when you were born without limbs, there's no medical reason for it, and your parents, I can't imagine what they felt, you know, with kids teasing you and wondering why God did this. Did you ever question God?
Definitely, definitely. I went to church every Sunday and went to Sunday school and learned, you know, all the favorite Bible verses like Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And I looked at that thing and I'm like, you know, other people could apply that in their life, but I couldn't. I couldn't see that hope and future. I got so angry at God. I said, "God, why'd you make me like this? Why? I mean, you may as well just have created a fish with no tail. I mean, what purpose will I ever fulfill in my life? I can't do this and I can't do that." And people teasing me and putting me down, and I just would never have thought that I would become the independent man I am today, traveling around the world and doing what we're doing. So it was very, very hard, very hard.
And the purpose now is starting to come to light. I mean, I can imagine you've gotten 2 degrees. Type what?
Oh, we've done a double degree in accounting and financial planning. I've done it, and by the grace of God. And with this foot, I type 43 words a minute on a normal computer. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what was the turning point for you? I mean, questioning God, not knowing the purpose. I mean, what happened to get you to realize that God cared about you even in these times where you couldn't see it?
Right. That is when my life changed. And before I was 15 years old, I realized that as human beings, we want to know 2 things. In your pain, you want to know that you're loved. And second of all, that everything's going to be okay. I couldn't see that anything was going to be okay. I never thought I'd get a job. I never thought I'd ever get married. I thought even if I ever did get married, I can't even hold my wife's hand. I won't be able to dance with my bride on our wedding night. When we have children, how am I going to put my arms around my kids when they're crying? And no one had any answers for me, and I wanted to believe that everything's going to be okay. And people used to come up to me and say, "Hey Nick, everything is going to be okay." I used to go to him, "Everything is going to be okay." I want to go up there and headbutt him, you know what I mean? Like, what do you know? You don't know how my pain is. You don't know what's around the corner. How can you tell me that everything's going to be okay? But it was when I read John chapter 9 when I was 15 years old and was convinced that God knows. God knows what He is doing. You see, no one could tell me why I'm this way, and no one could tell the blind man in John chapter 9 why he went that way. But Jesus said it was done so that the works of God may be revealed through him. And it was done, and it was shown, and just this tangible faith and peace of just knowing that someone understands, that God, who is bigger than my circumstance, is letting this happen for a reason. And I came to a point of saying, "Lord, I don't understand this purpose, but I trust that you know what you're doing." And that is when that peace of God gives you that strength to get through from day to day.
And now, Nick, I mean, the purpose is so clear.
Yeah.
Back then it wasn't, but it's amazing to see what God's doing through Nick and his ministries. He's going all over the world. Tell us about that. It's powerful.
It's amazing. I could speak for half an hour just about that. God is opening up doors of nations that are very close to the Bible and the gospel message. Africa, India, Indonesia, just to name a few. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. This DVD of my life that I have that you can go up there and check it out in the foyer, but this DVD is being black marketed. It's basically my story of how God's changed my life with the gospel message on it. And in the places where you cannot preach, these black marketed copies are being shown. And I mean, it's just... In Africa, I was, on TV across East Africa to 50, 60 million people. And I mean, just the way that people look at disabilities over there is so shocking. We are so ignorant to it. When a baby is born with any birth defect, as little as a cleft lip, take it to the extreme. I'm not going to use colorful language, but that's exactly what they do, and it's in their newspapers. And then, basically, it's a shame for the family to have a disabled child, so they abandon it. And then they hear of a guy without arms and legs with a smile, with hope. It doesn't register in their mind, and that's why we bring in these crowds. India, over 5 nights, 350,000 people came to hear the gospel message, and we saw 80,000 make a first decision to have Christ into their life. It's huge. It's huge.
Well, when I was preparing this message about joy, one of my teenagers walked in and we started talking about joy. And he asked me, he said, "Dad, what is joy exactly? I mean, how do you, describe it? How do you get a handle on joy?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about that." And we talked about it a little bit. And then he said, "Do you think if Nick had the choice today, if God gave him the choice and said, 'Nick, if you want arms and legs, I'll give it to you. It's up to you.' What do you think Nick would say?" And then I said, "I don't know. It's a great question. I'll ask him." So Nick, I know you get asked that a lot, but what is your answer to that?
I want to be completely honest with you. That's just who I am. I'm real with people. And from the bottom of my heart, I'd say that I choose this all over again, 10 times over, knowing that one soul through my life would be changed forever, and see that you don't have to do this alone. You see, because of my weakness, you see the perfect strength of God. knowing that I couldn't do this on my own. And when people hear me preach, as much as they want to try resist to the truth, they have no choice but to believe me. Why? Because my pain is real, but my victory is real. And I am a miracle of God that you cannot argue with. You cannot argue with my smile. You can't argue with the strength in my eyes. You can't argue with it. And so, if I am that miracle for somebody else, here I am. Let's do it.
Well, let me ask you this. If there's one thing you could tell us about joy and how to experience joy, I mean, what would it be? What do you see as most people, their greatest barrier to getting joy in their life?
You know what? It's about perspective. Do you know what we do as human beings? We find such peace and, quote, maybe comfort in your pain when you see somebody else going through something different. Like all of a sudden people come up to me and say, Nick, I'll never complain again in my life. And I'm like, don't worry, tomorrow is Monday morning. You'll be complaining. And so there is no, that security or that comfort that you have in your pain by comparing your sufferings to my suffering will only be temporary. But the comfort you have in Him, what does that mean? What can you rejoice about today? Well, if you know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you know that your sins have been forgiven and that Jesus has set you free from all fear and all guilt. Now, if that's not something to rejoice about, to know that we're going to be in heaven with Him face to face for billions upon billions upon billions of years, no tears of pain, I mean, that's something to be happy about. No, of course it is. But this is the thing. We need to know that God never makes a mistake. That if He doesn't change that circumstance, then He will use it. And when you come to a point of zero selfishness, and I strive for that, I'll never reach that. But that's my goal, to fully trust in Him. To say, Lord, thank you that you know how I feel. But I thank you that you are with me. And everything is going to be okay. You know, maybe you're a person today who's tried to get through your life on your own, and you know that you're tired, you know you're exhausted. And even Christian parents come up to me and cry on my shoulder and say, Nick, I don't know how to pray for my kids anymore. If you want God to draw near to you, draw near to Him. Put your faith in the Bible, because in the Bible is where I find my strength. Promises that will never fail me. His grace is sufficient for you, for your family, for your job, for all that you need. He's there. You won't feel it. You won't see it. Maybe for a while. But that's where you walk by faith and not by sight. When things go wrong, it's going to be all right. It's a cool song. But I want you to know today that you don't have to do this alone. And Jesus is right here.